Today I'm going to be reading from Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions. As I read this book, I realize that the Jungian analysts who are writing it have a slight disagreement among themselves whether it is written for the layman or only for other Jungian analysts. Sometimes that contradiction appears within one of these essays. Today I'm going to be reading from an essay by Swift Furlotti, the tagline for which is "A Voice of Hope for Our Precarious World." With apologies to Nancy, I'm going to edit it just slightly so that it will be more understandable to lay readers. In the year 2000, I had a dream. At the time of this dream, life seemed to have a perceivable order. But all that changed a year later with the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center. Here's the dream. I am at the base of a large Buddhist temple in Indonesia called Borobudur with Jung. With a holy and respectful attitude, we slowly begin our ritual circumambulation of the temple, moving silently from level to level on this large square and round vertical mandala that depicts the many lives of Buddha and Buddhist cosmology, from the world of desires to the world of forms to the formless world. Our pilgrimage begins on a counterclockwise movement around the temple, spiraling up the 9 levels until we reach the top. There we have a magnificent view overlooking the land. Off in the distance, I see Prambanan, which is the Hindu holy area filled with tall and beautiful intricate temples dedicated to the Trimurti, consisting of Brahma, God as the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. Jung and I lay down small prayer rugs and kneel on them to pray, facing in the direction of the Middle East. All the religions of the world are contained within this large mandala. We are on a holy Buddhist temple with a large number of Hindu temples in view. Jung and I are representatives of the Judeo-Christian religions, and the prayer rugs represent Islam. I realize we are praying for the recognition and unification of all of them into a new religion. We are now living in a new era. Not only have we lost our innocence, but the word terror itself now evokes anxiety to the core of our beings. Adding to this, the world is in a mad forward rush to technological change that leaves us fearful and unsettled. Adding to this, the world is in a mad forward rush of technological change that leaves us fearful and unsettled, uprooted and alone. Violence seems on the rise. Yet simultaneously it is reported that we actually live in a safer world now than ever before in history. However, our perceptions and our subjective experiences say otherwise, and it is the subjective forces reflecting our inner state of being, manifesting our greatest fears, that to a great extent create our reality. If our moral and ethical stability is off balance, then the world is too. Through our clouded lens, it seems our fast-paced world has tilted off its central axis and is listing toward destruction. The Science and Security Board, a group of concerned atomic scientists, shares this belief. It has recently reset the doomsday clock forward to 2.5 minutes to midnight. The old threat of nuclear war remains a feared ghost in the shadows, and to that we add the increasingly dangerous effects of global climate change. Some might explain their fear by pointing to President Trump's erratic behavior, Putin's aggression, or Kim Jong-un's nuclear missile tests. But its source lies deeper in the unconscious layers of our psyches. In response to this fear, authoritarian and potentially dangerous leaders have been called up by our collective will as the ground beneath us no longer holds. As C.G. Jung reminds us, quote, "The psychology of the individual is reflected in the psychology of the nation. What the nation does is done also by each individual. And so long as the individual continues to do it, the nation will do likewise." Only the change of the attitude of the individual can initiate a change in the psychology of the nation. If ever there was a time when self-reflection was the absolutely necessary and only right thing, it is now. Fear of change drives us into a regression and reactivates in the unconscious a more or less primitive analog of the conscious situation. Hence, we are drawn to authoritarian leaders under the illusion that a supposed hero or strongman can make life safer by stopping change. The sense of stability in the United States prior to 9/11 that was suddenly shattered was not so dissimilar to 1913, when war was precipitously unleashed because of misunderstandings and missteps. Its aftermath led to World War II. Through this painful and destructive history, the Western myth of progress has been shaved down to a thin membrane, and now, after 9/11, it is no longer capable of holding us. My dream, as cited above, points to the need for a new myth that speaks not only to the Western world, but embraces the entire global world. All the differing religious and cultural viewpoints need to be brought into respectful dialogue. The difficulty is that religious ideologies tend to separate people into groups and support the process of shadow projection onto the other, a defensive attitude that maintains misunderstandings and furthers aggression. It is quite lamentable that with our present levels of philosophical and psychological understandings, with science and reason making us masters of our world, our more or less unconscious animal instincts still control the levers of our actions. We have not fully integrated something big, and that is the reality of the psyche. It is the creative source of renewal, capable of guiding us through this brave new world or leading us to destruction. Edward Edinger focused with great concern on Jung's admonition about the dying Western myth and the need and possibility for a new one. He speaks of what it might be. Quote, "A notable feature of the new myth is its capacity to unify the various current religions of the world. By seeing all functioning religions as living expressions of individuation symbolism, i.e. the process of creating consciousness, an authentic basis is laid for a true ecumenical attitude. The new myth will not be one more religious myth in competition with all the others for man's allegiance. Rather, it will elucidate and verify every functioning religion by giving more conscious and comprehensive expression to its essential meaning. The new myth can be understood and lived within one of the great religious communities, such as Catholic Christianity, Protestant Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, etc., or in some new community yet to be created, or by individuals without specific community connections. The universal application gives it a genuine claim to the term chthonic." Unquote. I believe we are in the midst of a struggle to achieve this potential consciousness and unity among humankind. The primary image in my dream is a mandala, a symbol of the self, representing the archetype of meaning and wholeness. It contains within it the unifying and healing potential. It seems in the dream my psyche was expressing the collective need for a new world order and was offering a symbol as the foundation for a new myth. 100 years after what Jung foresaw in 1913, we, in the first quarter of the 20th century, are in the midst of a radical change similar to when Jung's psyche became activated and produced visions of a devastated world. His view of a vulnerable world in need of consciousness continued to his death. In 1913, he was perilously dragged down into the unconscious to re-encounter his soul and through the arduous process of transformation to discover the way to a new symbol of wholeness. His journey in the Red Book speaks of his personal inner journey, but it also offers a collective template for renewal as well, helpful for us today to find our way through these perilous times.